The entire SEC is going ballistic right now over the Big 12 because of something wild Texas Tech just did. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We will start. Texas Tech has ignited the flames of the SEC, and they are not happy with the Big 12 right now, and it's good, very good for us. Then the Big 12 is rich. We just signed a new TV deal that no one is talking about except for John Kurtz, and I want to build on what he had to say about it then. BYU will start a true freshman at quarterback, Bear Bachmeier. That's what it points toward. Let's see if that's a good thing, a bad thing. TJ Pittenger of College Football Addiction will join to help us break it all down. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Without further ado, what is Texas Tech doing?
Listen, we have there has always been this, paying for players is fine. Even if you want to live in this alternate reality of the SEC never paid for players, let's go there for a minute. The SEC never paid for players. Okay, fine. We'll live in that alternate reality. The SEC had the most money, the best facilities, the most talent-rich areas. So there were natural advantages that existed, even if you want to put on blinders and say that Kirby Smart or Nick Saban or any of these guys never paid for players. We'll go there. But they always had the best of the best, the most TV appearances, the best facilities, the best nutrition, the best weight rooms, the best theoretically the best coaches because they're paying them the most money, whatever. Best staffs, largest staffs. And so, but now that everyone is paying players and it is legal.
Yeah.
Now we're upset. And again, I'm putting blinders on to give that big qualifier of, well, maybe the SEC never did play players, but they were very much advantaged to recruiting. And now that somebody else, what's the cliche or what's the meme? Now that the rabbit's got the gun, now that somebody else has an advantage, it's a problem.
If you don't think Cam Newton got that $100,000 from Gene Chizik, I've got some oceanfront property in Starkville, Mississippi that you would love to buy. This is beautiful, man. I'm so excited that Texas Tech signed the #1 overall transfer portal class and that they immediately parlayed that by going and getting maybe the best player in the country in 2027. #4 recruit by some, #1 by others. He is LaDainian Guyton, and he is a stud at the edge position. A massive man in my backyard out here in Savannah, Georgia. And immediately the reaction was from the SEC fans, Georgia Bulldogs fans who were like, Texas Tech? What is that? And we've seen, TJ, some of these offshoots where a guy randomly commits to, say, Wake Forest. And like, why are you going to Wake Forest? And we never hear from him again. Or randomly commits to Memphis, this high-profile 4-star. Even a 5-star quarterback in the current state of Houston going to Houston. You think, what? That's random. Georgia fans look at this. Texas fans, Ole Miss, Alabama fans, and go, one of the best big men in the country is going to Texas Tech. That's random. We'll never hear from him again. But the problem is, they know in the back of their mind, that's the same Texas Tech that just signed the #1 transfer portal class, the same Texas Tech that continues to sign 5-stars out of the high school ranks, and they are very transparent with how they do it. McGuire's staff spoke this week. They said, look, if you're Georgia, if you're Alabama, and you're going to give a high school kid $200,000, we will give him $400,000. They were public with how they're concocting this and conducting their business. Texas Tech just jumped onto the scene as one of the biggest powers in college football from at least a money standpoint. Oil is huge there. They looked in their backyard and say, if there's one thing that Alabama doesn't have, it's an oil well sitting outside of their campus in Tuscaloosa. Neither does Georgia in Athens. We have that at Texas Tech. BYU is doing a lot of the same things in basketball and now football too. And the SEC can't handle it. The day that it comes around that everyone can pay players, it took a couple years for Texas Tech or BYU or the Big 12 to settle into that. But now the SEC can't share. They can't handle the fact that somebody else, if Texas is spending $50 million, Texas Tech is spending $60 million. They can't handle being #2 to anybody, and Tech is putting some of these schools to shame.
So I've got a couple of ways I want to go with this, and they're completely different directions. But first, with the recruiting, one, do you think they'll be able to hold on, or will the SEC do their very best to continue like a bidding war and try and pick off Texas Tech? Like, will Texas Tech continue to invest this way and basically go no holds barred? And then second, what are your thoughts? Like, we saw another Texas school, a former Big 12 team, sign a crazy class a couple of years ago, and that kind of fall flat. Like, are there some concerns with, hey, we're going to introduce this much money, and does the locker room not work out as well? So two different type of questions, but when it all kind of rubber meets the road, what's the impact here for a Texas Tech? And then, can they hold on?
Here's why I'm excited by this from Texas Tech, and I wouldn't be from A&M or UT. For any school in the Big 12, they have done more with less for years now. Baylor, Iowa State, teams that have won championship games out of the Big 12, or they've gone to championship games and then won their bowl games in the New Year's Six. What they do differently, they take a 2 or 3 star kid, maybe the occasional 4-star, and they beat SEC schools. They beat Big Ten schools, TCU over Michigan in the college football playoff. Those are not coincidences. It's because the Big 12 is really good at development. So the SEC, might get the 5-star. The only way we compete is by making the 3-star an equivalent 5-star college football player down the road. Now the question is, what if we took the 5-star with that level of development, that level of weightlifting and off-season training, and instead of a 5-star, 3-star becoming a 5-star, it's a 5-star becoming one of the best players in the country. That's what Texas Tech and the rest of the Big 12 has unlocked, is great recruiting and now great development, becoming really great college football programs. On top of that, here's why I don't think the SEC will come in and crash Texas Tech's party in the next year or so, or years to come. They don't want to risk it. I had this conversation earlier this week with a couple of analysts, one being Chris Level of Red Raider Sports Network, who covers them closely as their color analyst. He said they don't want to risk at Alabama giving a freshman or a high school kid $200,000. Texas Tech will. Georgia hasn't done the experiment of let's go buy the top 20 players in the ESPN top 300 in a high school class and hope they pan out. Texas Tech will, because they're doing things differently. If Georgia won't do it, Tech will. They'll give those kids more money. From there, it becomes homegrown. They can develop. And while, again, LSU and Alabama, they say, we don't want 18-year-old kids. Texas Tech does. They want those players that they can grow out of their system and then supplement out of the transfer portal. Conversely, SEC schools look at the portal and say, I'd rather have the third-year guy out of Western Kentucky. And sure, that guy's proven. Maybe it works, but man, once that third-year guy is out of your own program and has respect and loyalty on a 3-year contract with Texas Tech, that is different. That's how you build a national championship contender in a different way. Texas Tech's just being innovative in college football, and I don't think there's an SEC school yet that's ready to say, we'll dole out $10 million to a kid who's in high school.
Yeah, I don't even know if they, again, Texas is, Texas A&M. I don't even know if many outside of those two have the ability to, right? I mean, I think there are, there might be some, but I don't know if other schools have the capacity to do that. Again, A&M, Texas probably do. Outside of those two, I don't know how many schools truly do have the liquid capital, right? Like if you pulled every kind of resource they had, yeah, that might be able to do it. But yeah, not on the same level as the schools there in Texas. Texas Tech included in A&M and Texas too. I wonder if this bleeds into other things. This is the other direction I wanted to go is, the SEC is known for having the best facilities, and the coaches in the SEC are untouchable because once they're in an SEC program, they'd never go to the ACC or the Big 12. Well, will this bleed over into other areas, or is it mainly hey, Jimmy's and Joe's win this thing? Or do you think that, because Texas Tech didn't just get money, right? They didn't just find that oil rig. Do they bleed this in other places? And not just Texas Tech, but other Big 12 programs. Are they able to poach a coach and give him a substantially higher number than maybe an Ole Miss does, or whatever, right? Like Georgia can pay or whatever. Is that something you see going down that route too?
For some, yes. Not for Iowa State. Not for Cincinnati right now. Texas Tech just built a brand new football facility that is state-of-the-art. Kansas just built effectively a new football stadium, and they just got a $300 million donation from the Booth. $300 million from the Booth family to build even more on top of that. Baylor just opened their new practice facility. You're seeing Houston did the exact same thing. The Big 12 was behind for 10, 15 years in renovations on their football facilities. Now they've caught up. And the money they spent, they're 5 years behind because that 5 years of money they spent on football facilities is now recuperated, and they're using it on players. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is the day. We are all circling that. August 26th on FanDuel, the FanDuel Futures Day. Preseason hunches and predictions will all be thrown into the NFL preseason. Call your shot on the MVP, eye a long shot division winner, or know your Super Bowl winner. Crown your champion in August, even if it's the Dallas Cowboys. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. August 26th, we're coming up on it too. FanDuel, play your game. Play it now with FanDuel. I like FanDuel a lot, by the way.
The Big 12, are they getting rich right now? Like, are things like, and I don't mean Rich Rod. We won't go the West Virginia route here, but no pun intended. Speaking on money, let's talk about it.
The Big 12's getting so rich. TJ, so if you're ESPN, you are Fox, or you're NBC, or you're CBS, or you're Netflix and TNT, you want to be involved in college football somehow. The Big 12 said, what if we signed a contract with all of them? What stinks, John Kurtz brought this up, that he did a really good job of fleshing it out. The Big 12 is about to get rich, stupid rich, because of what Brett Yormark is doing on the business front. There is a problem. You're going to have to watch college basketball on Peacock and watch college football on Temu and go to Wayfair to watch your favorite college baseball team play. There are going to be a lot of subscriptions that come with this, but the Big 12 now has basketball contracts with ESPN. They'll be on CBS. They'll be on TNT. They'll have football on Fox. They'll be on NBC Peacock. They'll be on Peacock now. They just signed a deal with NBC for basketball to be carried on their network. They have a chokehold now, a stronghold on all major broadcast networks that are proven and that work. The Big 12 said, we want to be involved with all of you, and now they've inked contracts with each of them in the major revenue sports of football and men's basketball. Along with that, this conference is going to get more money and have more bidders at the end of the day. I've been recently, I didn't know that auctions were a thing. I play the banjo. This one's weird. I play the banjo, and I found this antique banjo at auction for $50. And I kept thinking, I'm looking at all the other items around it. This one's $7. This one's $12. This one's $15. And it's just because no one bid. Had someone bid $200, I probably put in a $250 offer for that banjo, right? What is going to drive the Big 12 making more money, what's going to drive the commerce of this conference to put them up there with the SEC or the Big Ten, are a couple successful years with NBC, with TNT, with CBS. And then those networks say, we don't have the SEC right now, but we like this Big 12 product. And if we can help use the same PR machine ESPN utilized to grow the SEC, to not lie necessarily, but almost rig this thing toward the SEC, maybe it'll work. Here's an example. ESPN's strength of schedule metric. Of the top 20 schools in the country, TJ, in strength of schedule, the SEC has 16 of them in there. Missouri, who plays 8 home games, a pretty cheesy non-conference slate, and 0 games against a college football playoff opponent from last season, they are 20th in the nation in strength of schedule. So what happens when the 20th team in the country beats the number 15 team in the country in strength of schedule? Nothing really changes that much. These are two teams that are battle-tested and gritty, and so, we got to keep them up there. You have built this kind of recyclable wheel where every single time an SEC team loses, they actually kind of win. If the Big 12 is able to get a bidding war going between CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and that number drives itself up, and then CBS wins that battle, TNT wins that battle, they can begin to create their own FPI metric, their own college football metric that says, wait, look at Kansas State. May not be roster talent on paper, but between wins and losses, and when you build it in an objective format, Kansas State has the 8th best strength of schedule. ESPN may tell you 28th because their contract with the SEC has insider trading written all over it. That's what the Big 12 is on the precipice of, building competition amongst networks to try to build up where this conference sits from a monetary standpoint. Now, yeah, you got to rent Peacock now if you're someone who wants to watch Big 12 basketball. But I'm telling you, man, I think and again, shout out John Kurtz for finding all this. We're sitting on a gold mine where the Big 12 is a couple years away from a big contract.
Yeah, I also think, so much is made, and we've done so much together about realignment and just TV, regionality of teams and why this team makes sense because of these new eyeball. Man, so much of it is streaming. So much of it is streaming. And it's really the way of the world. Now, I still am a loser and have cable and use it for one thing and one thing only, and live sports is that thing because I just can't handle a 5-second delay. I can't stand when I'm watching a game and a tweet comes across before I see the play, so I do still pay for cable. However, most of the world isn't obsessive as I am, right? Like they may not do this for work too. So, and that's a big factor, but so much, all that said, to say so much is streaming right now. And so to be ahead of the curve and really the way that most people are going, I mean, listen, we've saying Your Mark's praises a ton, but being innovative here seems massive.
Yes, it's not. The SEC doesn't have to do this, right? The United States in 1926, TJ, you know what was good? The economy. So that we didn't have to change anything. The stock market's great. What would the SEC do right now to try to build that competition amongst TV networks? It really couldn't. They're happy with ESPN. Same with the Big Ten and Fox. But then in 1929, we didn't see that coming, did we? The stock market fell. Do you think, we've kind of heard inklings of this in the last couple of months, do you think ESPN can keep doling out billions? They've already lost the MLB. They're already losing other networks. Like they wouldn't have bought the NFL because nothing that they're doing is working right now. They're losing money hand over fist. Do we really think that they can keep up with $1 billion contracts for college football? Because I'm not sure if we're headed that direction where between inflation and the way football viewership looks at the collegiate level is sufficient for ESPN to make as much money as they want to.
Yeah, no, the sustainability, and again, you mentioned the strength of schedule and the FPI and the different metrics that they have built in. The sustainability turns a lot of people off, or what they're doing turns a lot of ability off too, to also question the sustainability, right? Like you said, you have baked in and cooked in metrics that we can look at and just say, like, why are we doing this? What sense does this make? Who made this one network that has a very vested interest in XYZ to the albatross of information that, it almost makes me wonder, like, why does Fox not even have, we talk about the Big Ten too. Why does Fox not have their own, FPI?
Yeah.
Why has that not been something that they've come up with? Their own algorithm that no one has a public knowledge of and that they can bake in their own, I wonder that. I wonder why that isn't done at other places. Why doesn't NBC have that or this network? And, so, yeah, they're turning a lot of people off to it. And I think anything that is new is probably good for the sport. I don't know if it's best for ESPN or the SEC, but I do think it's good for the sport in general.
Can I give you another example of how ESPN loses? You ever watch, say, when Florida State was really at the peak of basketball, even a couple of years ago, where they had some really good basketball squads, there'd be nights where Florida State would play Clemson. They're both in the top 25. They're on ESPN Plus. You're going, why are they on ESPN Plus when NC State is playing Miami? Both teams are unranked because ESPN predetermines these games. They have ESPN Plus crews built into every major university in the country. So typically they're Florida State students or faculty that are working the ESPN Plus game on campus. Allow them to work the game, decide on Sunday, our ESPN slate features the best college basketball games. Is that not only going to drive more viewership and revenue? Yes, but that makes too much sense for them to go with. On top of that, TJ, I can't name a single show ESPN has on between the hours of noon, 1 to 4 Eastern. What? Used to those.
And you used to know all of them.
Yeah,
used to know all of them. Around the Horn, PTI, all that stuff.
Now, nothing. And they diluted those shows too. But I cannot watch a single piece of programming. And I think what they lost was the blue collar American who loves sports. The blue collar American. Yeah, they're a Yankees fan, but they're still blue collar in their support for sports. Once they lost that audience, ESPN has not been the same.
No, not at all. It used to be you could literally leave it on all day. SportsCenter was so good at that time that you could watch the replay 5 times and then all of the programming they had on. Now it is, I watch ESPN for live sports and that's it. That's the only thing.
Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. Wayfair, I made my house happen. I bought a home in February, my first one, and said I need to fill it with things. Wayfair, my ceiling fans, my bed, my dresser, my couch. Summer winds down. There's something nice about getting back into the routine you love. Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. Bedding to linens to storage to solutions for every single room. I grabbed a whole bed. Yeah, pretty good. Perfect time to get my home ready, whether it's organizing, upgrading workspace, or making weeknight dinners easier. Get organized, refresh, and back to routine for way less. Head to Wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home with Wayfair.
All right, let's move on to BYU. Has their quarterback. Obviously, so much has been made about Retzlaff and the exit and who would take the job. And we've talked about this ad nauseum, but they do finally have their guy there for the Cougars.
I think they do. I think Bear Bachmeier is going to everything that I've heard out of the camp. Jerem Jordan, a BYU TV, his prevalent thought is that Bear Bachmeier is the guy. I think Bear Bachmeier will be the answer, again, based on everything I'm hearing out of the BYU camp, and then McKay Hillstead will be the backup. Hillstead could have been the guy, probably was the guy a couple of months ago after the Retzlaff situation unfolded. Since then, Bachmeier, by all accounts, has stepped up and been the leader as a freshman who's been the most athletic, the best playmaker at practices. And a lot of the observations from fall camp at BYU say that the freshman is going to be the guy. This is the most important quarterback battle in the Big 12 to me right now. It's not Oklahoma State. It's not West Virginia. Those have been, by and large, decided. It's not UCF. It is BYU because this is still a contending roster that needs that last piece, the signal caller piece, to come in and finish it off to give them an opportunity to win the Big 12 Conference or be in a position to possibly win the Big 12 Conference. And Bear Bachmeier, in my opinion, is now going to be the guy. Had you told a BYU fan in February, when they were winning Big 12 games and getting their way to March Madness, hey, by the way, Crystal Ball says that Bear Bachmeier is going to be your starting quarterback next football season for 12 games, it would have blown their minds. It would have blown my mind. He is a freshman. He was at Stanford. He didn't even play spring ball at BYU. He just got on campus in March, I believe, is when he committed. And it went from, oh, what a fun piece to have in a couple of years, to, oh, he's the starting quarterback because Jake Retzlaff, 11th in QBR in the Big 12, so not a star, but you want your senior quarterback. He is gone. Bachmeier's 6'2", 225 pounds. That sounds like a quarterback. I don't mind that whatsoever. And he left the situation at Stanford, which made a lot of sense. He went there to play early, considering there's such unrest in that program that a freshman could walk in day one and be a game changer for the Cardinal. Now at BYU, he's going to be a guy given the keys to a proverbial Ferrari. Like, hey, look around you. You've got great offensive weapons like LJ Martin and Chase Roberts, a really strong defense with a lot of returners. The question is, can a guy who didn't go through spring ball, a 4-star, 262nd recruit in the country, walk into BYU? Same guy that passed up Oregon, Arkansas, Alabama, Notre Dame, A&M, Michigan. Can that guy do it day one?
Let's give the good, bad, and the ugly here. What's the ceiling? What's the floor for his type of season that you would expect?
I think the ceiling would be. TJ, we don't know anything about him. You know, that's the thing. It's like ceiling could be Jameis Winston, Johnny Manziel, good young quarterback, and we are blown away by, wow, it's a good thing he was the starter the whole time. Floor could be Isaac Wilson last year at Utah, who as a freshman was a complete dud and didn't put together anything for the Utes and really disappointed that entire fan base with how that season went. And a lot of them were calling for his head as someone who should be benched and they should go in a different direction. And that was a dumpster fire. Now in this battle, it's hard to truly give where you could put Bear Bachmeier from a ceiling standpoint or even the floor. Tiger Bachmeier, his brother, plays for BYU. That's going to be a really cool piece to have for him, and I think that builds his confidence as he goes wild into this fall. His senior year, he missed the first 8 games of his high school season. Returned to lead his school to the Division II state title game, but missed 8 games his senior year. You know, there are so many pieces of this Bachmeier situation that don't point to great. But TJ, I don't know if you've seen the BYU football schedule, but it's pretty easy this year. Let me give you some of these and see where you land, because I'm pretty sure Portland State's a win. I don't feel very uneasy about that one.
I feel okay about it. They might not need a quarterback in that game.
Home game against Stanford, arguably the worst team in the Power Four this year. They go to East Carolina, wily East Carolina team, but still that should be a win. Then they play Colorado. Then they play West Virginia, and then they play Arizona. All 6 of those are wins according to Las Vegas. BYU is still favored because the strength of schedule doesn't kick in until you get to the Utah game, which, mind you, is in Provo. BYU struggles to lose in Provo. They get Iowa State.
Weird
Texas
things
Tech.
happen in rivalry games,
100%. Iowa State, Texas Tech back-to-back. Those might both be losses, but they host TCU, finish the year with Cincinnati and UCF. 8 of those games, I don't care who you're putting at quarterback. You're the better team to the extent where you should win. I'm not that worried about BYU.
The average BYU fan, or maybe even all BYU fans that are watching this, are already going to know the answer here. But just for the general fan that might be watching this, I think a young quarterback's best 2 friends are the running game and defense. They take so much. Now, there's other things, quarterback-friendly system and a coach that understands how to set you up well, receivers that hold on to the ball. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. But a run game and a defense. So for the average fan, talk to me about those 2 things in BYU right now.
Yeah, I think BYU's run game is going to be one of the better in the Big 12, just based on how LJ Martin has looked in camp as well. I'm hearing from a lot of people who are out there day in and day out that he could be one of the best in the Big 12, just based on how he's improved since last season, where he was already somebody who turned a lot of heads in this conference. Looking at Pick 6 previews, they have BYU sitting somewhere around the middle of this conference. Brett Ciencia has one of the best preseason magazines in all of football and doesn't love the BYU Cougars. Now, a big piece of that is because of quarterback play. As soon as Brett saw that, there goes your starting quarterback who is a senior, it gets really tough to pick BYU to finish highly in the Big 12. I still think they can because, like you alluded to, the run game, which is a best friend to a quarterback, is going to be good. And the passing game for BYU doesn't necessarily have to be elite if the run game is good. They only lost 2 games last year, Arizona State and Kansas. That Kansas game was ugly. Double-digit win season under Kalani Sitake. Their scoring offense was 40th in the country. That's not even that good. Their total offense, 59th in America. That's not that good. It's not what got them to the passing offense, 60th. Rushing offense, 68th. So if LJ Martin takes that step, BYU's going to be a fine spot. Their scoring defense, 18th in the country. Points per play, 19th. Total defense, 13th. That's what was elite last year. That's what's coming back this year. That's why I believe BYU's in a fine spot. Their defense is what won them games. Their special teams. But TJ, they had a lot of close games, a lot of one-score games. Utah lost a lot of those. BYU won a lot of those. Oklahoma State lost a lot of those. BYU was on the winning end, like an Arizona State. So if you take that into account and things flip for them this year, their one-score games flip, BYU's a 7-5 program. But like I said, their schedule's so easy, I don't see them being anything less than that, really.
Yeah, when you talked about the schedule, there are some teams that could maybe surprise us. Maybe Colorado really puts it together and is better. I know there are people there in Boulder that are super high on things and less maybe star talent, but maybe more complete of a team overall. But you look at that schedule and you think, okay, well, maybe you slip up to Colorado. Maybe you lose those 2 that you mentioned. I think it was Iowa State and Texas Tech back-to-back. Yeah. Those are tough. Yeah, you could lose the rivalry game. But, man, 8-4, 7-5, kind of worst case scenario. Like, there's no excuse to lose any of the first 3. There's no excuse to lose the 2 on the end. Like those should be like, you step on the field, you don't lose to Cincinnati, you don't lose to UCF, you don't lose to non-Power 5 teams. I guess Stanford technically qualifies, though their roster is maybe the worst in the Power 4, I guess, at this point. So, man, when you start out the season with 5 wins, right, or 5 unacceptable losses is really a better way to say that, because college football is weird and crazy things do happen. When you start out the season with 5 unacceptable losses, man, you're talking go 3-3 in the rest of them, and 8-4 is not what any BYU fan wants to hear, but 8-4 as a floor is really not the worst place to be, considering the logo that I'm wearing on my chest right now. So I think that, and that's the floor, right? We're talking worst case scenario here. Best case, you're talking 10 wins, 11 wins. I have a hard time seeing anybody in the Big 12 going undefeated this year because it is so even, but you're talking 10, 11 wins as a best case scenario. I mean, you're right there at the playoff again.
No doubt. This could happen. It could be BYU. And like you said, not to pick on Florida State, but 7-5 isn't the end of the world. 8-4 isn't the end of the world.
I would have done a lot of, I would have been gambling on Venmo for a chance to get to, 7-5 last year. So, Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work, bud?
At Locked On Big 12 on Twitter or wherever you find your podcasts, and on YouTube every day.
Thanks, buddy.
Always fun, DJ.